But thank you so much for everyone who has made the effort to register and to come and attend this webinar to engage with us. I'm really happy to have you. My name is Gabriella Lucklin. I am the chair of the Early Career Network at ISPAH, and I'm going to be moderating this session. Okay, and just a quick overview of the agenda. We only have 30 minutes because we wanted to make sure that people who were able to attend could do so and not have to sacrifice the rest of the meetings that they probably have on this busy day. So we will start with a really quick introduction of the Early Career Network, an overview of the Congress, and then talk a little bit about abstract submissions and some opportunities that we're really looking forward to sharing with you for early career members. And this could be researchers and practitioners as well. So just some quick information about the Early Career Network. We are a group of 150 early career professionals. As I mentioned, we have researchers, practitioners, and also individuals interested in policymaking. We host webinars around 4 times per year, and we sometimes combine and collaborate with other organizations that have similar young professionals groups. We also have networking events at the ISPAH Congress, and we've also launched a new early career spotlight, which is a chance to have our members featured on our website. And here's just an example of one of our members down below on the right-hand side of the screen. So the real goal for us, this network, is to help individuals who are in the early stages of their career, so roughly 7 years post their terminal degree, whether it's a PhD or a practitioner-focused degree. And so we really want to make sure that people get the opportunities they need to succeed, to network, and also just to grow their potential in regarding physical activity and health promotion. So what I'm going to do now is pass it on to Professor Darren Warburton and Kai Kaufman, who will be leading the ISPAH Congress in this October. It will be a virtual Congress, and we're really excited to partner with them, and I will let them take it over from here.
Great. Thank you so much, Gabby. And on behalf of Kai and our local organizing committee, I'm really excited to introduce the ISPAH Congress in 2021. So to start in a good way, we'd like to acknowledge the traditional ancestral and unceded territory of the Coast Salish peoples upon which the Congress will be hosted. And we trust that you'll enjoy hearing about local Indigenous languages, traditions, and practices. The ISPAH Congress will bring together thought leaders, policymakers, community leaders, Indigenous elders, and researchers from over 30 countries for conversation, debate, and innovation. The Congress theme is the holistic approach to health and wellness through physical activity, including body, spirit, and mind. A special focus of our Congress will be early career professionals, looking at health disparities globally, and looking at holistic wellness within Indigenous communities. For the Congress, here's some key highlights. We anticipate welcoming over 1,000 delegates from around the world in a truly virtual environment. This will be scheduled over 3 time zones with 5 keynotes from across the world, including 40 accepted symposia and at least 40 scientific sessions. This will also include 7 council meetings. If you want more information, you can go to our schedule online, which will be populated shortly with a Congress app as well. For the presentation styles, I think this is really exciting for early career scholars. Jasper and I are both mid to later career scholars, and this is a little bit novel for us because all presentations will be pre-recorded with a live Q&A at the end of each session. The oral presentations will include 2 different formats. There's actually, our e-poster has moved into a mini oral presentation. And we have a traditional oral presentation, which is a 7-minute presentation with questions at the end and the live Q&A. And the mini oral is 2 minutes in length because our young scholars, including Tepi, said, we want to get this message out right away. So immediately after the session is done and the 2-minute single slide presentation is done, there will be a live tweet going out with the hashtag and your Twitter account too as well, so that you can have direct interaction with the global community immediately upon presenting your findings. The next thing I'd like to highlight briefly here is early career professional opportunities. There's going to be dedicated highlighted presentations for early and mid-career professionals. In fact, we're going to have early career researcher and practitioner awards. There'll be, as Gabby's nicely talked about, there will be early career professional networking opportunities built within the virtual platform. We'll also have the choice of preferred presentation time zone and also on-demand availability to your presentation, so that if you can't meet the specific time zone or presentation time of another colleague, you can see it later in on-demand. We'll also have a dedicated portal for job and career opportunities for early career scholars. This is a good way for network with other professionals around the world to provide opportunities for further career advancement. And importantly for this Congress, we'll have all abstracts individually published with a DOI. So each individual that publishes an abstract here will have a peer-reviewed abstract publication in the literature. And I'd just like to thank everyone for this today, and I'll just turn this over to Jasper now. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much, Darren. Thank you very much, Gabby. Yeah, I'm not entirely sure if we should do or give the opportunity for questions and answers in between, but now that I have gotten this slide and got the word, I'll say a few things, and I'll keep it very short. It's a virtual Congress, which obviously is a bit different than a in-person Congress. But even though it is virtual, any Congress is still about creating contacts. And in that sense, a virtual Congress is no different. So in my mind, the best way to think about that is to see a Congress as a place to meet the people that you could potentially work with in the future. And it's up to you to figure out who would you actually like to work with. And that obviously involves a lot of things. That involves, if you can meet face to face, getting to know people, figuring out which people you like to work with. But in a virtual event, it's also about, okay, what type of topics are people working with? Do I like what I see in terms of presentation style and so on? So it's about creating contacts. So when you go to a virtual Congress, doing that is a little bit different than going to a in-person Congress. You probably have to be even more proactive, but in a slightly different way, where obviously in a real life Congress, you would go to a presenter afterwards, or you would talk to people over coffee. In this case, it's very important to use the question and answer sessions that will be live. As Darren said, the presentations are pre-recorded, but there will be live question and answer sessions. So use them. But also, very importantly, if you see something you like, let other people know that you liked it. And it can be both their work, their ideas, but also if you see a very original presentation style, let people know you liked it and that you were inspired by it. Use the Twitter handles that are provided, or you find someone on LinkedIn, ResearchGate, or via email. I know it's very old school, but get in touch with people. So don't feel afraid to write, to say, oh, your work is very interesting, or I thought your presentation was very interesting, and share what you have been doing and how that might be relevant to others as well. And obviously, if other people reach out to you, make sure that you do reply. So as I said, creating context is slightly different than in person, but it's still possible. And in my mind, it's still the main aim of any good Congress. So work on your contact skills. Thanks.
Brilliant. Thank you, Jasper. So in the true interest of trying to make sure that we give you a quick overview of the conference, because a lot of this information is online, but I really appreciated how Darren and Jasper really brought some of that to life a little bit more. We wanted to have maximum time for questions, but one of the things that I was hoping that maybe Darren could expand on a little bit is some of the awards that you were talking about. I know we've been talking about that as an organization, but Darren, I'd love to sort of get a little bit more context if we have some time, if you'd like to go back and talk a bit about what those awards might look like, and maybe we can get some thoughts from the group as well regarding how they would like to be engaged. I'll go back to that slide.
Great. Yeah, we're really excited about the opportunity for First is starting with the highlighted presentations for early and mid-career professionals. Kai, who's the conference secretary, can speak to this too as well. And what we're trying to do is, because of the pre-recorded nature, it really provides a lot of opportunities to have everything organized well in advance in comparison to traditional lectures. So our scientific committee, Global Leadership Committee, headed by Dr. Draper and Dr. Kaczmarzyk, is actually going to go through all the early and mid-career professionals. And it's really important for those on the call today to identify if you're an early and career mid-professional when you log in to submit the abstract, and also when you upload your final presentation. That way it'll allow the scientific committee to actually review your presentation and put you in these featured highlighted presentations. We're also looking at a series of awards for researchers and practitioners for early career scholars that allow for students and young faculty and young researchers to get the acknowledgement for the innovative work that they're doing. Right now, we've outlined at least 3 early career awards, and we're looking to expand that too as well. So I think that's something that's really exciting for students. And we're talking about the various opportunities that will exist with that. And I think that's going to go nicely with the highlighted presentations too as well. With the highlighted presentations too as well, we envision that they will be across the 3 different time zones too as well. So that's another thing too as well, that we're really working to make sure that everyone has the opportunity to present and participate in this. And another thing that for sake of time, we went quickly into our discussion, is that you don't have to have a nomination package for this. You're automatically submitted as long as you select that you're early and mid-career scholar. So when you first submit your abstract, and if you happen to forget to do that, that's fine. You can send us an email and we can update your information too as well. So that's a really important thing for students and young faculty and young researchers, is that there are at least 3 early career dedicated awards for practitioners, for researchers, for knowledge translation. And these are really important to career development, and also a really important opportunity. One of the things that we've been talking to about, and Gabby's been really instrumental in this, is the opportunity for people that win these awards and that are highlighted to have the opportunity to participate in their own early career network webinar at a later state. So that's a really later date. And that's a really important opportunity as well for people to have an invited presentation to a webinar that features early career scholars. So I think that's really a nice summary for those students and young professionals, academics that are looking for to build their CV and increase their network.
Brilliant. Thank you so much, Darren. I hope that provided people with a bit more context for some of these awards. And at least for someone like myself who's still in this phase of my career, I think it's just really important to have those kinds of chances for recognition. Because sometimes it's hard to sort of be in a field like physical activity when there's so many different organizations that have lots and lots of conferences. And so we really think that this makes ISPAH stand out as a conference that people can go to and really feel like they're a valued member. So thank you about that, Darren. I'm not sure if it's a question for Darren or Kai, but could you speak a little bit to the ways in which we're trying to address equity in regards to registration costs for low and middle income countries versus high income countries? Feel free to take that one, or we can talk about it as a group if that works better.
Yeah, Kai, I think it's really important to think right off the outset that was a real priority of our group, is to keep the cost to the bare minimum, especially for low and to middle income countries. So we actually have a really attractive registration portal that allows for academics from lower to middle income countries to have a very reduced rate, and in some instances near to nothing. So it's a really important mandate of our program is to make sure that it is equitable and that we're addressing EDI and making sure that that everyone has the opportunity to participate, regardless of where you're coming from. Maybe Kai, if you want to give a little bit more too about some of the things that we're doing with respect to inclusion, for instance, of Indigenous peoples and their voices too as well.
Thank you, Dr. Warburton. A lot of the initiatives right now are focused on Indigenous health and wellness. So we have an endowment fund for Indigenous students and trainees as well. And we also have, I don't know if Dr. Warburton, if you wanted to go discuss the pre-Congress as well.
Yeah, that would be great. And so there is actually a pre-Congress dedicated session that will, all the live videos will be available to all registered delegates of ours. So on the October 8th, because of the overlap of time zones, we've moved it back to the Friday, October 8th for the pre-Congress satellite meetings. And one of those satellite meetings is a dedicated session for Indigenous peoples around the world. And so this is an important a mandate of our program, and I think that's something that we're really passionate about. We are the first Congress that is actually Indigenous led. So it's actually, we have Indigenous scholars leading the Congress and Indigenous elders. So our Congress is actually led by elders. So that's a really important thing too as well. So that's a real priority of our program that we're exceptionally proud of. One thing I do want to mention, Gabby, sorry to interrupt there. On our website, on our registration website, you can actually scroll down to the registration portal and you'll actually see the attractive rates for student members from lower to middle income countries. And I'll just put this in context. If you were to register before October 3rd and you were a member of ISPAH, the lower income cost is $0 for lower if you come from a lower income country, or $15 if you come from a middle income country. To put this in context, even if you're a non-member, non-student member from a middle income country, the cost is $75, and a student member from a or from a low to lower income country is $0 too as well. So that's if you register early. So that's really speaks to the commitment of ISPAH and the local organizing committee to keep the costs low.
Yeah, I'm just going to advance to the slide. I think we actually made the slide, but one of the things that we wanted to mention as well, and either Dr. Warburton or Jasper, we can talk about this a little bit now, is the deadline for submissions. And you know, I think as questions start to roll in from the group, and if you have a question, by the way, please use either the chat box or the Q&A function. I see some people raise their hands, but that's how we're going to do questions for this webinar. One thing we wanted to talk about a little bit before we kind of dive into more open questions is the deadline for submissions. So that is going to be June 21st. So that's about 3 weeks from now. And so we hope that gives you enough time to really sort of think about what data or what results from a study that you're working on that you'd like to prepare. So I know that Jasper and Darren and the organizing committee have been working really hard to make sure that there's enough time. Would either Jasper or Darren, would you mind taking the floor and talking a little bit about that review process and what are some of the things that you're looking for in a really good abstract? And I know it's on behalf of the actual scientific committee, but we'd love to hear a bit more about that too at this time.
Yeah, I can speak briefly, and then I know Jasper will have a lot to add from ISPAH's perspective, but from the local organizing committee, we want to make sure that the variety of voices were heard. And so we want to make sure that there's high scientific quality, but at the same time, we want to make sure that policy papers and community-based initiatives are highlighted in this. So we've actually created sessions dedicated to non-traditional presentations too as well. So this is I think that's the real strength of ISPAH and the ISPAH Congress, is that we are trying to facilitate the voices of many in the physical activity and health world that may not traditionally be able to present their findings in other mediums. And so Dr. Kaczmarzyk and Dr. Draper have been really instrumental in working, and we're indebted to the scientific panel because they've been really focusing on making sure that we hear a large variety from across the world. And so the themes of the Congress are designed in that mind too as well. So looking at health disparities globally too as well, looking at lower to middle income and how to increase the opportunities for presentations. And so our Twitter feeds and our live social media feeds are designed with that in mind. So you'll see presentations in like the one slide presentation will be designed exactly to meet individuals that may not have a full paper ready for publication, but they have a really innovative policy paper or innovative applied paper that they want to get out to the global community. And I think that's a really attractive feature. And I know Jasper will have more to add to that from ISPAH's perspective.
Yes. So I think the main point that I would be looking at, and also I think for the very short presentation, 7 minutes or the 2 minutes, it's very short. So I think one of the key things to keep in mind is that this is a physical activity conference. So you don't need to tell people that physical activity is good for you. So you can jump over a lot of those typical introduction sentences that you would have in a full paper. We're not interested in reading that. We know that. Everyone knows that. So you don't have to tell us that. So I think that's one important tip to make sure. Then the other thing is we're looking for something new. So make it very clear what your study or what your project is adding. So show us what is the added value of what you would like to present at the Congress. I think that's the other very important point there. So if you don't have to provide, for example, detailed statistical methods or very detailed results yet. It's more important that it's clear, why are you doing this? Why is it novel? And what are your key results? So that's also something important to remember. An abstract that has no results whatsoever, that is also a difficult one, because how do we know what to expect and if it will be interesting? So even though you're probably not fully ready with your analysis yet, you have to do some sort of a estimate of what you expect your main points will be. I think that's all for now.
Yeah, Jasper, I think that's a really good thing too as well. Our one slide, there's a 20-word or less take-home message, and that's the key take-home message that goes out in social media. So I think if you could think of that for both the 7-minute and the shorter mini oral, if you think, if I can put my key message into 20 words or less, what would that message be, and what would the information to support that message be? So we've seen abstracts already come out and they've focused on one key outcome variable, and that's been really well received by the reviewers.
Brilliant. Thanks both. We do have a question from Reza Sayah, or is it Reza? I'm not quite sure. Sorry about that if I got that wrong. They said, I have an unpublished manuscript currently being prepared to send to a journal. Would submitting the abstract to this Congress affect the chance of publishing the full paper somewhere else? I think I can speak for us and sort of say that that's not going to affect that being published. In fact, I think a lot of people choose to submit their abstract to a conference before they even submit it to a journal or while it's being considered, and that should not affect your status. I think obviously one thing that we could think about is maybe tweaking the wording of your abstract so that you don't submit the same wording to the actual journal when you put your paper in, just to avoid sort of self-plagiarization and other issues that you might run into. But yeah, I think and again, feel free to weigh in, our panelists, but I think that is really a good idea, and it helps you get feedback that you can then put into your paper. So others, if you want to comment on that or add something, feel free.
Yeah, Gabby, Kai is actually the head of that process too as well, and we're ensuring that all the abstracts have a DOI, but they are independent, and you wouldn't be. You're exactly right that is completely acceptable to publish in a conference proceeding, and that is standard for the field. But the way we're designing too as well is the titles and the messaging, trying to keep it short and brief too as well. So in a peer review publication, your title will, as you said nicely, be quite a bit different.
Brilliant. If any more questions come in from the chat box, feel free. But one thing I was going to ask is, what are some ways that Jasper, you talked a little bit about making sure that you're able to connect with different scholars, and this might be a question for both of you, but what are some ways that individuals can do that besides Twitter? And is there going to be somewhere in the portal that has sort of more of a social component? I know that one thing that we're planning as an early career network is to try and think about some social hours for members to come and interact. But in regards to networking with individuals in mid and late career levels, what are some of the ways that you think, based on your experience, but also just for this conference coming up, what are some ways that you think would be a really good way to do that? This could be for anyone.
Yeah, so Kai is actually was going to talk about the Whova app and what we're trying to do there too as well. And maybe Kai, if you wanted to speak to that.
Yeah, thank you. We're using the Whova app, which is a social media platform for the Congress. So there's various ways for delegates to interact with one another. We're also having a few events, such as I believe a run walk as well, that we'll be planning. There's just lots of ways for delegates to interact.
Yeah, and I think Kai has been really instrumental in doing this. We're building in a whole social media platform and networking platform within the app itself that links so that people can, for instance, have virtual coffee breaks. One of the things that we're going to do is virtual lunches in your time zone. So where are we going today? What are you making for dinner? And then there's also a photo contest too as well that Kai's organized. So we're actually going to be creating a photo contest from your region. So one of the themes that we are talking about right now and have finalized is exercising in nature or exercising in the city. One of the things we're also talking about is Where's Waldo sort of pictures where you place a unique object in nature and people have to find that. Another one that we're talking about in this discussion is for people to send in pictures of themselves when they're kids, and then the rest of the group try to figure out who that person is. So there's a lot of fun opportunities. We're also bringing in Zoom breaks, fitness breaks, where we have our professional trainers that work with our Olympic athletes and with our clinical populations too as well, that will actually be running Zoom training for delegates that you can actually do on your treadmill or do at home, home-based training. So we have one of our PhD students, early career PhD students, just started in the Faculty of Medicine at UBC. Will actually be doing some sport-specific training that he uses with the Canadian Olympic team. So Canadian Olympic athletes. So there's a real breadth of it. You don't have to be an Olympic athlete to do his workouts, although I've done those workouts and I need a little extra recovery after doing them. So but nonetheless, we'll make sure that they're delegate appropriate. But there will be a variety of different opportunities. One thing that we're building in is wellness breaks too as well. So we're actually building in some meditation breaks in between, because virtual congresses, that's one of the things that we're trying to mitigate is the Zoom fatigue. And so you'll actually see the Congress, we're going to limit the time of each day too as well, and try to keep minimize the parallel sessions. So normally, like in our main Congress, we had planned it 2 years ago for 10 parallel sessions, up to 11 parallel sessions at a time. Well, in the Zoom fatigue world, that doesn't work very well. So we're actually trying to make sure that all delegates can attend as many sessions as possible. And I think that's a big mandate too.
I think that's a wonderful idea. Zoom fatigue is definitely something that prevents people from coming to conferences. Okay, well, believe it or not, we actually are at time, which is crazy because it's only been half an hour, but we wanted to do a really quick webinar just to sort of provide individuals with a chance to get some more information. Again, just to remind you that the deadline for submission is June 21st, and we've put the link right here in the chat, and Joey has kindly put that link for you in the chat box. We will be following up just to sort of ask for some feedback on the webinar, and also we want to really get some input from our early career professionals regarding what they want to see for some of our early career sessions as well. And we'll keep sort of ramping that up in terms of engagement between now and the Congress. So before we go, I want to say thank you so much to Professor Jessica Ziprin and Darren Warburton, and then also to Kai Kaufman. Thank you so much for your help, and to Joey for helping me behind the scenes on this webinar, and for everyone at ISPAH for helping us to coordinate this. And thank you again for our attendees coming. We hope you got a lot of it. But again, if you have questions, please feel free to email us or to send us a tweet. So without that, I will stop sharing, and thank you all so much for joining us.